Welcome to a special episode of Firebreathing Kittens. This is our rules discussion where we discuss the rule books we played in the past few games for February 2026. We'll discuss the tabletop role-playing games The Walking Dead, Blade Runner, Lewis's Unified Role-Playing System, abbreviated LURPS, The One Ring, Never Stop Blowing Up, Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls, and Sad Vampire Boyfriend. Let's dive right in, reading these reviews written by our Firebreathing Kittens players and game masters. The episode Working for Packing Peanuts featured the RPG system The Walking Dead. Our first review says, The Walking Dead is a very well thought out and detailed system. It's definitely geared towards combat-heavy players. The system is easy to understand with work. I feel like the casual player might get bogged down in all of the rules and mechanics. I just wish there was an easier way to pick up and play a one-shot without having to get so involved in all the rules. Our second reviewer said, The Walking Dead is a crunchy system. Lots of moving parts. I'm not certain that I would describe it as a combat-heavy system. I get the impression that combat is more intended for other human NPCs and less the walker swarms. Typical game sessions and stories would probably put a stronger emphasis on avoiding and evading swarms rather than fighting them. I liked the risk that walker swarms pose. That sense that a single bite could crit and kill you evoked the feeling of being in a zombie story. Once bitten, twice shy, as they say. It felt like we were steamrolling the zombies up until they almost killed us. A quick reference guide of all the tables clustered together would be very welcome during combat. Our third reviewer said, The Walking Dead. I didn't notice that stress reaching 5 triggered a mechanical effect because it's not in the stress section or the healing section. It's only later in the hungry and tired section. Clustering all the stress rules together would be good, or even adding that sentence to the healing section. If I hadn't read that hungry and tired section, I wouldn't have known that 5 stress means you don't heal each day, and I missed it the first read-through. The episode How Ya Doin', Champ featured the RPG system Blade Runner. Our first reviewer said, Reading the rules to Blade Runner was intuitive, but then having to go reference them during the game was harder to do. I'm not sure if that's something organizational that can be adjusted, but it would definitely help to have maybe like a quick reference guide. I enjoyed Blade Runner, and I would play it again. Our second reviewer said, In Blade Runner, the mobility roll failure that was part of the chase scene was odd to roleplay. How does one roleplay not getting closer? It was a bit of a head-scratcher, but we made it work. The similarity in terms between grappling, opposed rolls, close combat, and hand-to-hand combat made it difficult to know which rules to use in the moment for catching someone at the end of a chase. They aren't all the same, so it matters which rules you use. The opponent can roll sometimes, can't roll other times, and what happens with a tied number of successes changes. Consistent tie rules and rolling interpretations wouldn't hurt. Our third reviewer said, Grappling somebody in Blade Runner. I feel like there's gotta be other things you can do when grappling someone other than letting them go or injuring them. It very specifically said I could only do one of those 2 things when I had someone grappled. Another thing is, with chases, it feels like, reading through that, it's not really considering a very wide variety of environments that chases can happen through. Like, it seems a bit weird to specify chasing on the streets, but I feel like one of the most interesting things on a cop show is when chases happen in weird environments, like chasing a serial killer through a mannequin factory or something, and pressing an arm to do a level and sliding on goop or something. I feel like chases should be a little more pulled back and vague and refer to potential for numerous environments chases can happen through. Chases aren't just outdoors on the streets. At the very least, indoor chases should be their own set of considerations. In the movie Blade Runner, there are literally chases in more than just the streets. Randomized obstacles kind of forces the GM to use outdoor, on-the-street specific obstacles, and the orange-robed monks, which weren't in the Blade Runner movie, were very specific and didn't leave a lot of room for flavoring. The episode 1000 Enter, 1 Leaves featured the RPG system LURPS, Lewis's Unified Role-Playing System. Our first reviewer says, "It's my first time playing LURPS. I like this system. The D6 concept is very easy to run with, very simple and quick to get into. The speed system is not terribly but a little bit challenging, but I do like the idea of having a limited resource to do things. It balances things out." Our second reviewer said, "The biggest question mark is distances in LURPS. But I like that this magic system is so free. You can kind of do whatever you want, which I like. It's fun to play in this world. It'd be great if I had more time with LURPS. It's the second time I've played it, too, and I like it." Our third reviewer says, "The rulebook says, quote, common elemental spell shapes. There are numerous forms of magic which overlap, particularly with combat spells. Rather than repeat each example for each school, this section lists common spell shapes to deal damage with, which are modified as appropriate by the spell school used to cast it. For example, a firebolt may set an object alight, while an ice bolt will embed itself or simply shatter against an object. Fire spells deal magical fire damage. Lightning deals magical lightning. Ice spells inflict mundane piercing, and earth causes mundane crushing. Unless stated otherwise with unique spells, other magic schools cannot deal direct damage with the methods listed here by default. This is intended for game balance, as other spell schools typically have more utility." End quote. Then the rulebook lists 2 pages of spells like bolt, touch, beam, ball, etc. 2 of the 3 players tried to build magical characters in this game of LURPS. One used the School of Earth and didn't notice that they had access to all those spells, and was pleasantly surprised when told that they had Earth Bolt, Earth Touch, Earth Beam, Earth Ball, etc. The other used the School of Motion and Levitation and thought they did have access to Bolt, Touch, Beam, Ball, etc., and had to be sadly let down that no, the school didn't have access to those spells. Because 100% of the magic users were confused by this layout, my suggestion to the rules writer for LURPS is that yes, it is worth making the rulebook 8 pages longer to put those spells in the rulebook 4 times. Firebolt, Fire Touch, Fire Beam, Fireball, etc. Lightning Bolt, Lightning Touch, Lightning Beam, Lightning Ball, etc. Ice Bolt, Ice Touch, Ice Beam, Ice Ball, etc. Earth Bolt, Earth Touch, Earth Beam, Earth Ball, etc. Sure, the rulebook would be 8 pages longer, but it would really reduce confusion and disappointment by the players. I notice that the rulebook is exactly 100 pages long, and that's a cool round number. And I do appreciate the author's brevity elsewhere, but everyone not being confused is cooler. Our last reviewer of LURPS said, "LURPS, Lewis's Unified Role-Playing System. This is the 2nd or 3rd time I've played LURPS. The more I play it, the more I like it. The rules are simple enough to determine if something succeeds or fails. The only thing that gets tricky is distances, but everything else is pretty clear." The episode Not the Return of the King featured the RPG system The One Ring. Our first reviewer says, "Rules are rich and well written. Very immersive, but not as helpful for reference purposes. I like the design of the rules. They do a very good job of working for stories in Middle-earth. Like that they encourage a dialogue between the players and the lore master. Nice bridge between the roleplay and the mechanical aspect of the game. Can be awkward when to initiate a council, as opposed to transitioning into a journey or a combat. Our second reviewer says, "The One Ring. Just like Tolkien, these rules are very verbose. Could use some clarification." Our third reviewer said, "The One Ring. I would appreciate a cheat sheet in the rulebook. Sometimes had to go hunting for what the mechanical effect of a condition was when it was referenced in text. I really enjoyed the mechanic of the feat die and the success die. For a one-shot, I liked rolling the success die first and then finding out how much my success hinged on the d12. The episodes Hot Bugs and Heists and Memory Lane Robbery featured the RPG system Never Stop Blowing Up. Our first reviewer said, "Never Stop Blowing Up is a super easy to learn system, especially given that there are only a few pages. I do like the Kids on Bikes system it's based on. I do think some of the special skills or abilities are a little bit overly specific. I feel like you could choose one and have 2 or 3 sessions and it wouldn't come up naturally." Our second reviewer says, "Never Stop Blowing Up is a delightful system. Very focused on the kinds of stories it wants to tell, with mechanics that add to the feel of anything is possible for our heroes vibe. Great system for a one-shot, though I'd love to play in a campaign to use the group abilities. I'm curious about the challenge for the GM to assign DCs, given the chaotic nature of the system." Our third reviewer says, "The Never Stop Blowing Up rules are very easy to learn. The rules are very easy to use as a GM. However, this isn't a system for one-shots. The GM does a lot of heavy lifting for checks. The GM has to come up with the difficulties for checks and enemies. It would be great to have more guidance about creating enemies in the game. The system works really well with improv and making fellow players look awesome." Our last reviewer for Never Stop Blowing Up said, "I really liked Never Stop Blowing Up. The rules are simple enough to pick up quickly, but still provide enough flavor to distinguish it from every other TTRPG. Playing it has made me want to play a longer campaign with this system." The episode B+ Students featured the RPG system Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls. Our first reviewer said, "I really liked all the different stereotypes that you could play. I think the rules were pretty easy to follow. Only issue I had was the mapping system for combat is really difficult when you're not all in the same location." The second reviewer said, "I thought Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls was really fun and super easy to learn. I like the D6 system. The combat was really interesting. All of the different abilities were really fun to pick through. They're color-coded and really easy to follow. Once I really understood how to do the grades and the mechanics, it was fun figuring out what grade I got in this class, how well I am doing. And I got a perk from my club after school. The moods lead to interesting consequences. What would happen if you're in a negative mood versus if your character had been in a positive mood? The whole system is so much fun." Our third reviewer said, "Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls has the mechanics that you play cards from your hand to be able to do a non-basic ability from your class, called an aspect. These abilities involve you rolling as many dice as you have in the particular stat for that ability. For example, power to physically damage an opponent. If you have a 5 in power, you roll 5 dice to use your special punch ability. You can spend cards to make that attack stronger, like rolling more damage dice, affecting a larger area, or having a longer duration. Because cards can be used to power up abilities, there's a strategy for whether you spend the card to do an ability, or keep the card for powering up a different ability later. There are also mechanics for what grades you get in class, as magical girls have normal lives during the daytime, and for temporary status effects called moods. I really liked Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls. The layout of the rulebook was in a good order, with all the information about one topic clustered in one section. The color coding of the abilities and clubs of the rulebook made it very easy to scroll to what you were looking for mid-game. It was convenient and nice to have pre-made battle maps of half a dozen combats at different player character power levels. The combat classes, called aspects, felt different from one another and would provide a lot of replayability, playing as characters from the different aspects. The mood system of limited duration status effects was different from most other games, and also very on theme for Magic Girls. The abilities and perks were plentiful and diverse, ranging from self and enemy buffs and debuffs, to teleporting across the field, to single target and chained target and area of effect attacks, life-draining attacks, attacks that did damage based on how injured your target was, enemy effects that altered how strong the cards you had to play effects was. There was so much content packed into such a tiny, easy-to-read package. Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls is the best tabletop role-playing game I've played in a long time. It worked well for multiple types of players. If you're the type of player who is looking for a quick-to-learn system that was simple to build a character in and play standard attacks for, just a light toe dip into combat mechanics, Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Girls is quick to learn and easy to play. Or, if you're looking to really optimize your character build with a diverse range of options for people who want to do that specific type of attack and really dig into a combat simulator, this game also will let you do that. I would absolutely play Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls again. The episode The Undrinkables featured the RPG system Sad Vampire Boyfriend. Our first reviewer said, "I wish that there were more ways to gain angst, even if that means consequences for getting angst." Our second reviewer said, "I really liked Sad Vampire Boyfriend. Having to do things in order to gain angst, which you can then spend to do actions, is a good idea. It was very freeform, not like D&D, where you have to roll and maybe it happens and maybe it doesn't. If you have enough points, you can make something happen." Our last reviewer said, "Sad Vampire Boyfriend. I like the idea of building angst to get guaranteed wins with pre-specified options, but I feel like that can be very limiting if those are your only options to take. I feel like there could be more general mechanics for things that don't require angst and that maybe can fail, like convincing people to do things, talking to people, maybe things that are less specific and less guaranteed. There should be levels. Angst for guaranteed this will happen, and everything else is a maybe." And thus ends our reviews. I read the reviews that were written by our players and GMs. This is the part when I'm supposed to pick a favorite. What's my favorite game? The Walking Dead, Blade Runner, LURPS, The One Ring, Never Stop Blowing Up, Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls, and Sad Vampire Boyfriend. There aren't really any stinkers amongst this bunch. I'm just going to point that out. They're all pretty good games. And they're games that are tailored for their audience. The Walking Dead has a lot of swarm mechanics for people who like that zombie TV show and video game franchise, all that. The Blade Runner book had interesting mechanics for what happens to your character's stats if you get revealed to be a replicant. Like, oh, you thought you were a human? You're a replicant. This changes. So that's cool. LURPS, for people who really want to point by and classlessly create their character, putting the points into whatever they want, they're probably going to also enjoy using their points during the game with the SPE mechanic. So it's like if you use up your points to dash forward or to double attack or etc., then you don't have them for something else. It's very points oriented, both in creating your character and in playing the game. The One Ring is the official tabletop role-playing game for the Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien mega series with thousands of pages. So the fact that that's a long rule book and you've really got to pay attention to details, the people who like the Lord of the Rings are going to be cool with that. Never Stop Blowing Up is short. It's for people who just want action, they want explosion, they just want to roll a lot of dice. If you're not rolling a lot of dice when you play Never Stop Blowing Up, like if your GM is just letting you succeed on things, it's not going to be the best playthrough for you. You really got to roll, and rolling a skill 6 times, you'll be able to level it up a whole bunch. If you don't roll that skill, it's not going to level up. So it plays as it's intended to play. Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls. It has really solid rules to facilitate your in-school and out-of-school activities. Those pages of club results, so from Ace, King, Queen, all the way down to 2, each one of those cards that you draw during your clubs had an event for it. So and for each club too. So drama club, cheerleading, sports, all of those clubs had Ace through 2 activities for you would draw a card and okay, you draw 2 in drama club, this is what happened. Very detailed rule book, color coded, really facilitated the school time role playing as well as the combat. And then Sad Vampire Boyfriend. You got sad when you played that game because the points that you spend were generated by you doing genuinely terrible things. Angst was a very appropriate word for the points that you spend in that game. So I just want to say all of these games really live up to their titles, their franchises, and their target audience. If that's a thing you like, you're going to like that game. So for me, what I like, here's the personal, part of this. Since I'm reading everybody's feedback, I get a chance to say something myself. What I like best in tabletop role-playing game rulebooks is I like interesting combat. So, I really love the ability to, teleport and life drain where you injure the enemy and then you gain life yourself. I love dealing damage differently based on whether or not your enemy is injured. I love all those really fun abilities and being able to pick from all of them. If you like in LURPS being able to pick all those different spells and stuff, that's what's cool about Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls. It has all those abilities. But it's not complicated because you only pick 3 of them to start with. So it's got that huge replayability of giving you an endless list of really customized, fun things to do that are very different from one another, and that really quick character creation of, just pick 3 of them, I mean, it's not going to take you long to create a character, and the character that you create is going to be very different from everyone else's character, because the odds that you're going to pick the same ability when there's dozens and dozens of them is really low. So you end up with these really different builds that do very specific things that are really interesting. Like for example, when you deal damage to an enemy and then it arcs and hits the next closest enemy and deals damage to them too, that's super cool. I love that. So I love combat. And the best combat from all of these systems was in Ultimate Hyper Fantastic Magical Girls. So that's why that's my favorite. All right, most excited about what upcoming games? So we've got some fun ones. We've got Cottages and Cerberus. We've got Ekrim. We've got Kaiju Girls, Tunnel Goons, DOGS, Slavborg, Omega Horizon. Man, which one am I most excited about? I think Ekrim Ecryme, I don't know how to pronounce that, Ecryme, because the combat system gives, again, I love combat rules. That's why I'm here. So the combat system in Ecryme is interesting because it gives you like 4 different health stats. It gives you like your brain, your physical, your social, and your magic. And each of those can be depleted. So, like, if you embarrass someone hard enough, you can cause them to have a social, like, hit point depletion. Which is just, it's hilarious to me. Like, if you tell a yo mama joke, so that's such a good burn, and it's good enough, then your opponent will tuck their tail between their legs and go home because that yo mama burn was that good. You depleted their social hit points. They have no more reputation. They're done. So I'm looking forward to Ecryme because I like the idea of mental, physical, social, and magic hit points. They're not technically called hit points. But that rulebook is an absolute horrible thing. Like, it's one of the worst rulebooks I've ever read. So, pros and cons. Pros and cons. All right, well, anyway, thank you for listening to this rules feedback. It's nice to chat about tabletop role-playing games and what makes them fun. And I hope you try some of these. You know, if you find one that is your jam, this set of games in particular, now they're not always like this, but this set of rules in particular were all winners for the type of person who enjoys that thing. So try one with your friends and have some fun. All right. Bye.